G'day, everybody. Welcome to Shooting the Breeze live show with me, Kate Fantanel or Fentanyl. No, I'm not going to let people use that joke against me as we saw this week. Yes, I am Kate Fantanel or Lady Liberty Australia. Please let me know if you cannot hear me. We have been setting up very last minute. Mr. Liberty has been running around setting this show up for me. I've had a very big week, which is I'm sure you are all interested in hearing about. So welcome to the show. Happy Sunday night. And I am raising a glass tonight. Cheers. Because Police Minister Paul Papalia got demoted. Yes, he did. He still kept defence industries and a few other portfolios, and they blessed him with the poison chalice of emergency services. So that is his reward. I better have a sip of this. It's bad luck to cheers and not take a sip. So cheers and good riddance to Police Minister Paul Papalia. Yes, that was the big news this week that we've heard out of Western Australia with the Labor government reforming government again. Slightly less majority, but still quite an overwhelming majority. And Police Minister Paul Papalia was demoted from his position as Police Minister. I don't know why. We can all speculate as to why. Hopefully, some of the pressure that we firearm owners have put on him and the terrible way that he has treated us, his disingenuous consultation, the way he used the shooting organisations as political pawns in his nasty game. Hopefully that all came into play when he was demoted from that position. So we have a new police minister, Reece Whitby, I think his name is. Don't know much about him. Don't know if he's someone worse. This is always my concern when people change positions. There's someone worse who can always come along, and a lot of these politicians we know are political puppets and pawns and are just doing the work of the factions that they are aligned to. So we don't know. We don't know what we're dealing with yet. Time will tell. I'm sure the shooting organisations have already been in communication with the new police minister. Hopefully, I haven't heard anything official yet, but I hope that they have been in communication with him and outlining to the police minister how upset our community is with these laws, which is, of course, why I launched the Legal Action Challenge, which I will talk about tonight. But it was somewhat bittersweet to see the news that the Police Minister, Paul Papalia, has been demoted this week. I know a lot of people are still feeling very hurt by the way he treated our community. That's something that I think about often as well. We can't forget that he was the one who authorised the firearms registry to provide addresses to the Wanker newspaper. My favourite propaganda rag. God, they love doing a hit piece on me. It was a bit nicer than the hit piece I had from my own community. I found that quite bemusing and a bit sad, but I will be talking about that tonight. So thank you for joining me for my Sunday night live stream. I made a promise at the start of all of this that I would be held accountable and be open. Internet has dropped out. Am I back? Sorry if that dropped out. I don't know why. Mr. Liberty, did that drop out for you? No, it's okay. Sorry. It's out. I'm back. We're in, out. Sorry. Yes, I am on the road again. I have driven very far this week. Mr. Liberty has work too. We can't be sitting in WA. He can't just be sitting there while I try and take down the state government. So Mr. Liberty has work commitments and I'm on the road with him supporting. I'm very tired. I'm very sick of living on the road, but my heart is still in WA. My fight and passion is still in WA, and I will be back. I will be back. I can't wait to come back. I cried when I had to cross the border. We drove all the way from Perth, can you believe it, to here over east at the moment for Mr. Liberty's work commitments. I tried to stay behind, but I'm nearly married, so I didn't think that would be good for my marriage if I just said, see ya, and stayed in WA. But I am, of course, in constant communications with my legal team, who I spoke to again this weekend. So you are tuning in, of course, to hear about legal action. But before I get into that, before I get into that, Mr. Liberty's heckling in the crowd. I do have YouTube has been so nice to me, much nicer than the friends over at Meta who have shadow banned me quite a few times and taken down my account for some of my spicy memes, and also because I talk about the topic of firearms. Aussie Reviews, my dear friend in Queensland, has also been subjected to this kind of censorship. So YouTube has been so supportive of my work, and please, I'm encouraging you. I'm putting a lot more time and energy into that platform. I have a new membership program there, Lady Liberty's Legionnaires. So there's 2 different levels you can choose if you would like to support my work outside of legal action. Of course, I do a lot more work than just this fight in WA. So please have a look on YouTube. If you're watching on Facebook currently, maybe check out my YouTube page instead. It's much more fruitful work for my labor that YouTube gives me. So please. And also, if you want, there are super chats on YouTube. So if you send a super chat, I am forced to read them out, even if it's against my will. So please consider doing that. So please put your questions and comments in the chat. I have a lot to get through tonight. It's a big week. I feel like I say that every week. When am I ever going to have a quiet week again in my life? I don't think I will. I can't even remember the last time I had a quiet week. So there's lots to talk about tonight. But the first thing I will talk about, of course, is probably the number one reason you're joining me is the WA Legal Action Challenge. Where is it at? How are we going? How many emails have I received? What's happening in that space? So let me just go back. And for those who have not heard me or cannot hear me or choose not to hear me, I will say it again. I started this legal action purely to pay for the advice from the King's Counsel, who is looking at areas we can challenge the gun laws in the courts. That's what is on my GoFundMe. That was my promise to you from the start, because that's all I thought I could achieve. Legal bills are very expensive for anyone who's had to navigate the justice system in our country. That is a barrier to entry, and I don't like it. That's not how democracy and the justice system should work, but that's how it works in this country. You do need to have funds behind you to take anything to court. So when I started this battle back in January, and those of you who've been following me would know I foregoed running in the WA state election to take on this challenge, because you cannot run for office if you are challenging the laws written by the government that you are trying to be a part of. That's not how it works. So I chose to go down the legal action route, and I set the goal to pay for the King's Counsel to provide the letter of opinion, which is the only opinion that counts at the moment. Mine doesn't even count. It's the letter of opinion from this King's Counsel that is working on the letter as we speak. That's what I set out to do back in January this year. And that is what is stated on my GoFundMe very clearly. Because of the state election, and I must say I only made the target to pay for that first piece of work on election night. I know a lot of people were waiting off, holding off, praying for a miracle and an election result that would give us balance of power in the upper house, or some politicians that are more sympathetic to our cause. We know now that that has not happened in WA, unfortunately, and we can all sit here and complain and think about why that is, but what's done is done. We have to move forward. So I'm so glad that I made that risky decision back in January to take on the battle of raising enough funds to get that important piece of advice. I still can't believe that no one else went out and got it. Everyone has an opinion, like I've said, but the legal system is sitting there waiting to help if they are asked. So that's what I was doing. That's what I've done. And I was relieved to make the target late on election night back on the 8th of March. So after I exceeded the target more than I could ever dreamed of, and thank you. I know people did this because we are put in such a desperate situation. A lot of people spent so much time, energy, money on the state election and the political battle to get nothing out of it. I know the Nationals have picked up a few more seats in the lower house too, but it doesn't matter when the red wave is still there and they don't have any control in the upper house. So I understand that people are very upset about that. And I know that's probably the main reason why a lot of you who were not even looking at my work or thinking or believing some of the things that have been said about what I do and what I'm trying to achieve, I understand that that's the only thing that pushed you over the line is because you feel like you're pushed up against the wall and this is the only hope you have. So thank you for throwing your support behind me and my team and my work. This has paved the way for me to sign a contract with my legal team to pay for the next part of this battle. It is no longer just the letter of opinion that I am paying for. I have already signed a contract saying that I will be paying for whatever else I need to fight this. And I have a war chest sitting there ready to go as soon as I get the letter of opinion and we can work out a strategy on where we can fight this, where our best chance of success is. So for those who haven't heard me or have chosen not to hear me because you have your own agenda to push, I am committed to future legal action challenges. It is not just a letter of opinion. I hope everyone understands what I'm saying there, as that's been the source of frustration and anxiety for me this week. So that's a bit of a recap on where I'm at with that. Yes, the King's Counsel, he is working on this letter of opinion right now. Right now, I did give him the deadline of the 24th of March. And because of the number of emails I've received, hundreds and hundreds of emails and messages, I still have not gotten back to all of you. I apologize. I did some work on them all day Friday and again today, and I have tried to go through my Facebook inbox and I'm still not on top of that. I apologize. I'm one person. I'm not an organization. I don't have a team of people helping me. I'm doing this part of it myself while my legal team work on the important legal advice. But because of all the information that you have sent me, there was quite a few bits of information that helped me inform the King's Counsel, because he's come back to me with a few questions that I didn't have the answer to off the top of my head. And it was because of your information and evidence that allowed me to pass that directly to my legal team and the KC. And unfortunately, that has added a little bit to his workload, but I want to get the letter of opinion to be as detailed as possible. I want him to have as much information as possible. So I've passed that on to him. That has increased his workload a little bit. Sorry about that. But it's important to get this right because I've paid for it and we want the advice to be as thorough and detailed as possible. I have passed that over to him and my team who are working on it now. They're working on the weekend. Thank you, team. But it's so important because I know we are all up against this deadline. The 31st of March is when the prohibited firearms that were banned in the regulations on the 23rd of December. What a great Christmas present from the state government. And I've heard so many stories from people who went out and purchased a push button release firearm or a lever action firearm. Some of these were the first guns that people had bought. They'd saved up their money. I remember reading a story today about a young gentleman who saved up all his money to buy a push button release firearm to help his father on his farm, especially with kangaroos, which are a huge problem in the southwest of WA. And he's only been told he has to give it back without any compensation. It broke my heart when I read that letter. So I know we are up against a 31st of March deadline in relation to the prohibited firearms. I understand that, and I apologize that we are in this situation to begin with. We are only in this situation because I am one person who went down the legal action route when no one else wanted to touch it. None of the shooting organisations did. I know a lot of them have their own lawyers that they've been speaking to, but none of them paid for this letter of opinion, which outlines where we can challenge the laws. I don't know why they didn't. I'm not here to point fingers or say you shouldn't have thrown all your eggs in one basket. And it's a battlefield. You have to have a strategy, but we are in this position now. It took me so long to raise enough money. I'm sorry I couldn't pay for it myself. I would give my firstborn son if it took that. Mr. Liberty's getting mad at me for saying that, but I would do everything I can to help the people if I could. And I couldn't. I needed to crowdfund for this. So that's why the timeline is so tight. It took me that time as an individual without the support of shooting organisations. And I did ask. I have all the docs. where I asked them for support and they turned me away. So we're in this position because none of the people with big money wanted to support this fight for whatever reason. That's fine, that's their prerogative. My prerogative now is to get this advice as soon as possible and develop a strategy with my lawyers on what we can challenge first. And of course, the big one is the prohibited firearms that are due to be banned on the 31st of March. I can say that there are emergency options available to go to court on these kinds of things. That is something that has been relayed to me. I'm waiting for the advice before we can act. So the timeline at the moment is still to get the advice sometime tomorrow. I know my main lawyer is in court Monday because lawyers have other cases too. No one is able to stop everything and just work solely on this case, but they have dedicated as much time as they can, including the weekends, to this fight. So I will be getting that advice tomorrow at some stage. I will be taking the time to sit down and read over it because I imagine it will be quite an extensive document. These are the biggest regulations and legislation on the books in WA. This is why it's taken the KC so long to write his letter, along with all the information I've funneled to them from you, the people who have shared information that I wasn't aware of or I hadn't heard of before. Thank you for providing that to me. That has helped me immensely because I don't proclaim to know everything. I have history working in this field for 15 years, but I still don't know everything. Nobody does. So if it wasn't for you sharing that information, I wouldn't be able to provide you the best of the best of the best. So timeline, I know everybody's nervous. We'll be working out the strategy, taking that time. I am booked in to see the lawyers and my KC on the Wednesday because we are going to all take a day to look over it and develop a strategy. I will be making phone calls tomorrow and Tuesday because I need to talk to people about potentially being litigants for the next part of the action, including class action. That's another thing I will have all the details about on Monday tomorrow when I receive the letter of opinion. So I will be busy making sure I have all my ducks in a row, and happy duck hunting season to South Oz. That started this weekend and Victoria was last weekend. So happy duck hunting season to all those who participate. I've got my hunter-gatherer shirt on tonight from my mate Dan from Eureka Outdoors. Thanks, Dan. So yes, timeline, getting the advice tomorrow. I will be on the phone tomorrow and Tuesday. If you have emailed me and you're in a position where you're affected by either the prohibited firearms, the gun limits, the storage requirements, all of these things, I might be calling you. I might be calling on you to help me with the next part of this challenge, and that is so important. So I believe I will be in a position on Wednesday to share with you publicly what we're doing. I will be making the phone calls Monday and Tuesday in anticipation for the next steps and lining that all up ready to go, particularly for emergency court action. That I have signed a contract to pay for. So for those of you falsely accusing me and spreading disinformation about the fact that she's only paying for the letter of opinion, I do not know how many times I have had to say this. I said it last week. I said it back on the 10th of March after I saw my lawyers. I am not just doing a letter of opinion, which, by the way, is a very important part of this battle. You haven't paid for it either, so at least I'm doing that. But for those of you accusing me of only doing one part of this fight, go away. Bother someone else with your nonsense. I don't want to hear it. I've got too much of an important fight and too much to work on without having to deal with that crap. So this is the timeline. I again apologize that we're in this situation. It is getting so close to the wire. People are very upset. I know I've heard people say if I don't comply, they will use it as an excuse to take away or just bar me from a firearms license for life. I've already had this conversation multiple times with my legal team saying this is how people feel. And I know there is a convention. That the laws have been brought in so late. We have not been given enough time to comply. Surely the police will not be going door to door on the 1st of April, April Fool's Day, to prosecute these laws that we have not been given enough time to comply with. I am talking to my lawyers about that every day. I will have more advice. So please, for those of you following this, Wednesday is when I will be able to go public with what we are doing, because I would have lined up what we're doing, and I'll be doing that work in the next 3 days. So that's where we're at now. I will just turn to my comments. I hope that's answered a lot of your questions. I know everybody's very nervous. And again, I apologize for how late we are to the table on this, but I'm one person. I couldn't do any more than I have. So let me just have a look. Beam me up, Scotty. Just gave me $20. Grab yourself a drink, Kate. Thanks for your support. Thanks, beam me up, Scotty. I have some Prosecco Rosé from the Veneto region in Italy. That's where I'm from. So cheers. Thanks, Scotty. Mr. Serioso just gave $20. Hello, my regular listener now, Mr. Serioso. And one for your tattoo. Looks like he needs cheering up. Yes, my little man. What side am I on this side? He's actually from one of my favorite bands called the Menzingers. They're from Philly, over in America, and they're a really great band. And sometimes this is how I was feeling after that hit piece came out about me the other week from the shooting media establishment. I did feel a bit like this. So thank you for your $20. Okay, I am going to get to some legal action questions. Okay, let's have a look. So Mr. Bullet 1952, will we hear from the KC tomorrow? So I am due to get the advice tomorrow at some stage. It's going to be a very big document. I've already been told that it's not a quick read and then off we go. It's going to take time for me to read and for my legal team to read too, because the KC has been the one authoring this in his chambers, receiving advice and emails from me and my lawyer and I. So I get that tomorrow. We need a bit of time. I'm anxious too. I'm a journalist. I have deadlines that I need to get the news out as soon as it's there. My lawyer gave me a bit of a telling off on Friday, saying it doesn't work like that in the justice system, Kate. The wheels of justice can turn slowly. So I don't have time for them to turn slowly, but I understand they have their other court commitments too. There's a lot going on in WA, a lot of other legal challenges outside of just firearms. So get the advice tomorrow for me to digest, my legal team to digest. We need to take that 24 hours to go through it thoroughly. And that's when I'll be going back to all those emails you've sent me. And I might be contacting you to see if you can help with emergency court orders and preparing for the next step. So Wednesday, I'll be putting out a video Wednesday night to tell you what we're doing. Keeping in mind also, I know one of my criticisms has been, you don't show your cards. If she just releases the advice publicly, the Labor government will know what to do to challenge it. So, of course, I have to be very careful in how I release this advice. That is something that I need that time to develop with my lawyer too. That's why I will be making these private phone calls between those of you who have contacted me. And if you want me to contact you about your situation, please feel free to email me, ladyliberty.walegal@gmail.com. I nearly got on top of the emails today, but I didn't quite get there. I'm sorry. There's been quite a few that I have to get back to. So it's been quite a lot of work. So that's the timeline, Mr. Bullet 1952. Ashley Moore, according to a source whose name I won't mention, a huge number of the things in the new regs won't work and should be chucked out because the police don't have the numbers to enforce the new regs. Interesting. And this is what I alluded to before, is do we have to prepare, and I've asked my legal team this too, do we have to prepare if we haven't got our storage requirements up to the new requirements by April 1, if we're still not sure if we should hand back our push button or lever actions because we're not getting compensated. And there's a clause in the Australian Constitution that says if the state confiscates private property, they must pay fair value for, and that's something my KC is looking at right now. This is why I'm talking about emergency injunctions. So are the police going to come door to door on April 1? And I've had nightmares about this. It's kept me up at night. And because I've come from fascist Italy, and I remember my grandfather telling some terrifying stories about what happened in his village. We don't want Australia to go down that path, or WA to be in that situation where the police are being used against peaceful people who are suddenly criminals on April 1 because the government of the day has changed the laws to make it so bloody hard to comply that they can't comply, not to mention the fair and reasonable test. Are these laws even fair and reasonable? It's terrifying to think, and we can't predict the future. We can only operate in the present. We have to wait for this legal advice, and as soon as I get that, we will know what we can do to put a stopgap to this and then challenge it to its full capacity. So James Goff, I've got 7 days to hand in my 22 mag. I definitely don't know what to do. I received a letter back. I'm told if I don't comply and hand in my 22 mag on the 31st, that will be deemed an unfit person to hold a license and have the rest of my firearms confiscated. Like I said, I had this conversation the other day with my legal team. This is what we're terrified about. I will put that question to my legal team, and we just don't know because, like I said in my last live stream, the conventions of the political process in WA and the manners on how democracy used to work just have not been followed for the last 4 years, and we can't guarantee that they will be followed into the future. It's terrifying to think that we're in this situation. James, I feel so, my heart goes out to you. I will bring you the information and advice as soon as I can. I'm sorry I don't have it now. I wish I could be the judge and adjudicator of this whole thing and just make it all go away by banging the gavel, but I'm not. So, John Davey is the King's Counsel working for the Imperial Crown, or the Australian Gov Corporation, I think he means. So King's Counsel is one of the highest lawyers in the land. They're appointed. It used to be the Queen's Counsel, for those who remember Queen Elizabeth II. So here's the King's Counsel. It's a title given to lawyers who have been very esteemed in their work. He's not only KC, by the way, I mentioned this last week, who has successfully prosecuted a class action in WA, and this is one of the reasons I hired him too, because this was something that was discussed at the outset, is the potential for this to be bigger than Ben-Hur because of the ramifications of how many people these laws have affected. And I have just been blown away by the number of people who have contacted me sharing their deeply personal stories. And I think this is something that has really been lost in the media and the debate. The fact that firearms are not just a tool to people, they have historical value, they have personal value. I know my dad's got 2 firearms that I personally can't wait to get when he passes away, to shoot with my family, because that's what our culture is. So the cultural effect that these laws will have on society, and these are the stories that I want to get out there. And going forward, once the legal action battle keeps commencing, I would love to interview some of you. So if you want to share your story about the other side of the story, it's just not reported. We don't hear these stories, and this is one of the biggest detriments to our community, is we have not done enough to educate our fellow Australians who might not be interested in firearms, and that's fine. Might never have shot a gun before in their life, and that's also fine. But when they don't understand our community, our activities, our sport, the culture of it, and all the information they get is from the media that is so slanted against us, or from movies, it's just, we need to do a better job at educating our fellow Australians about not to be scared of us. And I was so pleased, one of the emails I received was from a gentleman who'd taken hundreds of people out shooting shotgun, clay target shooting, which is a really great first way to introduce people to the sport. And he just said it changed so many people's minds after they'd had that one experience, one day at the range. And then they kept harassing him saying, can I come out again? And these are people who were either agnostic or anti before they had that day at the range. So this is something that I think we need to do a bit more work on. And this is why I do what I do publicly, to change the perceptions of us and our community. Mr. Bullet 1952, not a problem, Kate. Oh, wait, thank you. Yes, so just Mr. Liberty's recommended I say, so I'll keep doing my Sunday live streams, but Wednesday is probably when I'll do either a video update or I'll do a live Q&A. It depends what my lawyers say. And Mr. Bullet 1952 again has said, if the legal advice is good, do not enter into discussions with the WA government. Yes, and this is why I need to have the time to have my lawyers have the time to look over it, have me look over it, as well as a journalist and an advocate and someone who is responsible to the people, especially everyone who's donated. I cannot thank you enough. I cannot thank you enough. So I will be keeping that in mind. I wish I could just release the docs. Finally, the JFK files have been released, or most of them. I wish I could have more about transparent journalism. Show me the docs, show me the sealed documents from Port Arthur. Just let the people know and decide. But when you're entering into legal challenges and looking at which court to challenge things in and what to do, I can't be as open as I would want to be, but it's in the best interest of getting a win. And I hope people understand that. I do not want to hide anything from anyone, because I am accountable to you who have supported me. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. An unknown said, my brother-in-law said a couple of days ago, that the government has outsourced firearm licensing to an overseas company. I don't know if it is true, but it's worth investigating. Oh, like how they outsourced the WA state election to an external company that ended up being a donor for the Labor Party, the Liberals and the Nationals, and now there's a cloud over the integrity of the WA state election. Someone actually emailed me and said, is that a direction we can go down? The fact that there are questions about the validity of the WA state election because how it was organised, poorly organised. I was appalled when I went in to vote. It was a clown show, to be frank. So that was an interesting point I hadn't heard of. I'm sure the politicians, or there's something that's covered their back that allowed them to outsource it in the first place. Why do we have an electoral commission whose job every 4 years is to run elections? They can't even do that they outsource it. But that's terrifying if they're thinking of outsourcing a firearms registry, because this is something that happened during the pandemic. Is they outsource things like the G2G in other states. I know Victoria, Mr. Liberty will probably remember this. Victoria, they outsourced their check-in app to a private company, and later all that data got breached and leaked. So we can't, this is very private, sensitive information. And I will look into that. Thank you for the tip. Okay, so if you do have any more questions about the legal action challenge, please put them in the chat. It's a lot to get through. It's been causing a bit of pressure in my life. Mr. Liberty took me out for a date on Friday night. We hadn't been out to a nice restaurant for a long time. He got some extra pay come in from work, so he thought he would treat me to a nice night out. And I was getting phone calls during that dinner from people wanting to talk about the legal action challenge. And then we had a bit of an argument about what we would do when we get the advice. So it has caused a bit of pressure in my life. I apologize to everyone that last week I was so emotional. I feel a bit embarrassed. Sorry. Didn't mean to have a breakdown on camera. That's not one of my finest moments, but this does affect me because, and I've said it once before, all of the emails and all of the stories and people that I hear from, all I see is my poor dad and how he was treated in 96. So it's emotional for me. And I'm just so glad I'm in a position where I can help because I couldn't help back in 96. I was too young. But I feel my purpose in life is to help the community that was treated so poorly back then and the people in my father's community. So that's why I get very emotional and upset sometimes, especially when I'm attacked by people who I'm just trying to help. Okay, speaking of getting attacked by my own community, I would like to address the latest news story that came out about me and the legal action challenge this week in my favourite propaganda rag, the Wank Australian newspaper. The media, which I use the acronym of the most effective devil in Australia. I've taken that from my dear friend Marge Teray from Black Guns Matter. He's got a t-shirt that calls the American corporate press the most effective devil in America. I feel it's very similar here in Australia. And by corporate press, I mean the lamestream media who are paid big money from the state government. They're usually the biggest advertisers in these rags. And they came out this week and put a story about me, calling me an alt-right social media influencer, Kate Fentanyl. They've used that line before, by the way. Get a new joke, Ben Harvey, lame. And I have been told that I am just as addictive as fentanyl, so I'm going to take that slur as a compliment. So that story came out. I did provide him a statement, which wasn't used in the video clip that he put out. I know he has deadlines. I'm a journalist. I can empathize with that, but he didn't use any of my statement. And then it came out on page 8 of the Wank Australian newspaper. I'm sad it wasn't page 3. Wasn't page 3 girls a thing back in the day? Because they used a picture of me of shooting a belt fed in the United States of America last year. And I believe, quite simply, that anything the state owns, the civilians should own too. So that story came out. I had quite a few people message me and tell me about it, and I watched it and I actually laughed. It was much nicer to me than that other vile attack that was made against me from people in my own community. But just like the corporate press, they didn't contact me before they ran with the story. And when I did reply with the statement to the Wank Australian, they didn't use any of it apart from in the paper the next day. So some of the things that they said, the thing that annoyed me the most, so I did have a bit of a laugh. The thing that annoyed me the most about that story is the disinformation that it spread about how legal action is not paying for legal action. And I will say it again until I'm blue in the face. I've already signed a contract to pay for the next stage of legal action, which include court appearances. So I don't understand. And I said this, I spoke to my lawyer. I was very upset because I have my reputation to think of. This is exactly why, after my Senate campaign back in 2022, when the same journalist who didn't contact me before he ran with the story about me, this is why I became professionally unemployable in Western Australia, because what professional organization or what professional business will hire someone and they Google her name, and that's the kind of press that I get. And so this latest story that came out insinuating that I had somehow scammed people into thinking they were paying for something that was not happening in the first place, when I am getting the bills for the not just the letter of opinion, which is classified as legal action. I don't want to play semantics. I'm not going to get in the gutter with people. I've got far more important things to do than argue about language, as much as I do like to spurg out about the use of language. I have already publicly said so many times that I have and I will be funding the next stage of this battle because of the amount of money that I have received. This is a war chest which has been flagged to spend on everything we can do in this fight. So that was a disappointing thing to me, that the story wasn't a challenge is about to be mounted against Papalia's gun laws, and there's only one person who is doing it with the weight of the people behind her. The story is somehow twisted into me being an alt-right, and I encourage you, if you don't know what that means, to look up that word. Elon Musk has been described as that. President Donald Trump has been described as it. So many people have been described as that when it's not the appropriate definition. How can I be alt-right when I still share some views with my leftist friends? It's just inaccurate. So I was very disappointed and upset to see that the story was about me and about being a social media influencer. I'm not. I only use social media because I'm a journalist, an independent journalist, and this is the only way I can get my message out. I'm not an organization bankrolled by people with vested interests which control what I say. And I encourage anybody who looks at news stories or stories that come up, not just about me, but about anything, question where they're getting their funding from, question why they're pushing a narrative when you can easily look up the facts of the story, which clearly says it's not just about the first part of legal action, which is the letter of opinion. She's already publicly said, and my lawyers also reiterated this to the journalist, that she has signed a contract for the next stage of this. This is just part one we're working on now. So that was something that I got, something else I had to do just when you think things couldn't get worse. But interestingly, it did help. My donations went up a little bit. I think my lawyer was watching it and said I went up 10 grand. So thank you. Thank you for the free press. I just wish it didn't have to slur my name, because I do have concerns about my future. And this is something I've said before about how hard it was to get a job in that town after my Senate campaign. I couldn't get a professional job. I had to work on a makeup counter, and um, that was, sometimes you need to go into different areas to learn, and I learned a lot. I'm not knocking it, and it's a great job, and it's, my dad actually taught me growing up to get a degree and also have a trade as a backup. So that was my trade, and it served me well for the times I've in politics. You find yourself unemployed at random occasions. So I'm glad that I had that skill in order to pay to live in WA, but it's also because of the media attention I've gotten with not just my Senate campaign, but now this battle. It does make it very hard for my career here in Australia. So I just want people to understand that it does come at a personal and professional risk when you take on fights that are against the establishment, that are against the state, that are against the corporate press, that are against press that have their own hidden agendas. You do become a target. It does take its toll on me, and I'm so grateful for those who have emailed and sent me messages of support. Some of the emails brought tears to my eye, made me laugh out loud. Today I was feeling quite anxious and low, and I just sat there and started going through emails, and those emails from you helped get me back in a place mentally to come and speak to you tonight, because it's been a lot for one person. And I stress that again, I'm not an organization, I'm one person, so it sometimes gets a bit hard to deal with all the crap. But like I said, it ended up raising awareness about the campaign, and I'm grateful for everyone who can see through the crap that the lamestream media put out. No wonder people are tuning out. No wonder podcasts like this and all the big podcasts overseas are getting so much more viewers these days, because you can't trust a press that is paid for by people who are telling you what message you can and can't put out. And that's why I only lasted a year as a journalist back when I began working at a newspaper, because I saw firsthand how big an influence the local council this had on the stories in the newspaper. And I've told this story before. I exposed a story about how the local council had awarded a contract to a business that was owned by a family member of one of the local councillors. I wrote a big piece about it. It was going to be published on the front page. And the local council said, to the editor, if you publish this, then we will not be advertising in your paper again. And the whole paper would have gone bankrupt. So this is why I have no time, respect, energy for the corporate press. They cannot be trusted. They have to bow down to the person with the biggest checkbook, which is at the moment in this country, the state government. So if anyone has any comments or question about that piece, I'll have a look now. But yeah, fentanyl, God. Maybe I should change my name to Winter after my husband's last name. Oh, Shooter Down Under. Yay, you're back. Hi, Shooter Down Under. Hey, Kate, the wank Australian newspaper. I have to give credit to my sister for that clever nickname, by the way. I call the Daily Telegraph in Sydney the Daily Terror Graph, and the Advertiser in Adelaide the Sadvertiser, if anyone wants to use any of those witty nicknames. In their attempt to smear you, made you look like an awesome, badass chick like Kate Beckinsale from Underworld. Oh, I love Kate Beckinsale. That movie was one of the reasons that I actually started taking up handgun shooting again. I just loved watching that movie growing up and shooting handguns with my dad. So thank you. What a compliment. And Ira, hi Ira. I saw Ira. He's the Hills bloke on Facebook. He's got his own podcast that I've been on before. I've got to come on again. We've got to set that up. He interviewed Mia Davies from the National Party recently, so give that a listen if you haven't. He said, mate, you don't have to keep explaining it. You can't help stupid, and you can't help willfully ignorant either. Terence Weston has put out has sent in a comment about how the new laws will affect the control of, specifically, he said, feral pigs. I did see that the former police commissioner was also in the news saying that he is very concerned that these new laws are going to affect how our farmers and landowners control feral pests and animals on their land. This is something that farmers have been screaming about. You would have seen my interview by now with Jack Carmody, who talked about the camel problem he has. I have received so many emails from landowners and those who own smaller properties than what the state has designated as able to have a certain amount of firearms or the calibers of firearms they can use. And they've just explained to me in detail how this will affect their livelihood. One family who lives purely off the land and grows all their own food, the best way you can live. I can't wait until one day I have my own land that I can do that on. He's just said, how are we going to continue to feed my family if I can't have the correct tools to do this? Because this is the other thing that we as responsible hunters do not want to be using the wrong caliber of firearms on these animals. We are humane and ethical about how we go about harvesting or culling animals. That's something that's been drilled into me since I was a child growing up around this culture. So the position that it's put us in to be able to continue to protect our land and our livelihoods and our farms, the gun laws just don't work. They just don't work. And somebody sent through a very detailed example of this, which I shared with my KC, because he was also asking, well, what calibers do you need? What feral pests and problems do we even have in WA? So that information that you provided to me has just been so useful in helping lawyers who've got their legal hat on understand exactly what we're talking about. Bruce Lowerson. Hi, Kate. Bruce here from Victoria. Hello from Victoria, and hello to everyone tuning in from around the country and around the world. I did have people from the United States of America donate to this fight. They are watching, they are very interested in what's happening here in WA, and to have donations come in from the USA who have strong beliefs about the people and their ability to own and keep firearms. If it gives you any comfort, please know that our cousins in the USA are helping this fight. They've donated. This does not affect them at all. They have their own battles going on with defending the 2A over there, but they are supporting us. It's just incredible the amount of support that we are getting for this fight. Um, and he said, hope you're well. That's great news about that maggot being demoted. Well, I think it's worse than a demotion. If you get emergency services with the ramping crisis that Nick Garan pointed out in my interview with him that's happening in WA, it's not, I wouldn't want that portfolio. So it sounds like he's been punished, but we don't know. We don't know what goes on behind the closed doors of power. Mr. Bullet 1952, again, Queenslanders have problems coming, but they think they are safe. Haha, yes, there was big news out of Queensland this week about 300 with mag rifles being denied PTAs. And I don't want to sound like my dear friend Aussie Reviews, but I can hear him screaming from all the way over in Queensland. We told you so. We warned that WA's laws would spread, that other states and territory governments would use WA as an example of why they can start bringing in similar restrictions in your state. And this is what is happening. So if I was in those states, I don't think we can rely on one shooting organisation or anyone else for that matter to defend our liberties. You have to look at what you can do as an individual to stand up against this injustice. And there is a problem. There is a problem with every Firearms Act written that give police officers the power to use their own judgment in regards to approving or denying applications. And this is not how the law should be written. It should be black and white, what we can and can't have. And most of the time it should be erred on the side of can, not can't. And if we can't have it, you have to have a bloody good reason why you're denying us this. And it should not be down to the judgment of a police officer to make that decision on what private property you can own. So I know there's stuff happening in Queensland at the moment. It's hard to keep on track of all the battles we have going on. I know there's stuff happening in Tassie too with an amnesty that's going on. In the Northern Territory, the firearms registry there has sent out letters saying they are preparing for the National Firearms Registry and that they need to get all their information and data collected properly. So they're asking firearm owners to send in photos, serial numbers, all of the stuff that they already should have. And I'm very concerned about the fact they're asking for photos of firearms. This was something that they did in WA too before they brought out the lever action ban, was asking people to send in photos, and they used it against us. I'm very concerned about the police innocently asking for information from us only for it to be used against us. And this is why I adhere to one of the donors from America. One of his number one rule is don't talk to cops. So unless you have to, and be very clear about when you have to provide information and when you don't. You don't always have to provide everything. You have rights. We have rights. I think that's a Hank Williams song. Oh, and see, I've got Robert Duheim. Greetings from down east Maine. So Maine in America. I've been there once. I went up to that beautiful state. I had the most amazing seafood up there. It's such a beautiful part of the United States of America, just above New Hampshire. They're near the Canada border. So hello. See, the Americans care about us. They want us to be free too. If you're scared of America, I encourage you to visit there. It's honestly a beacon of liberty. That's where I got the moniker Lady Liberty from, because of course she is the epitome of liberty. I know France was trying to take her back. I don't know what's going on in France at the moment. I think they need a revolution again. But yes, hello to everyone watching from around the world. So, Min Boots Phillips, we are here because we have faith and are interested in listening. We donated willingly, keep doing and take the battle to them. God bless. Thank you, Min Boots Phillips. I appreciate that. And also, I just want people to know I never tell anybody what to do. You don't have to donate. You don't have to support me. You don't have to like me. You don't have to agree with the road that I'm going down. But as I keep saying, the only opinion that matters is the opinion of the King's Council. That is what we have to rely on at the moment. Oh, Peter Zabradak. Hi, Peter. Frank Sinatra called the Australian media a pack of, I don't know if I can say that word, when he visited Australia on his only visit. I know, and I've seen other people who come from around the world to Australia or play sport here. They get treated terribly by the Australian media. I know she has a lot of critics, but I'm a huge fan of Madonna. She got treated woefully when she came here. I don't know if she'll come here ever again. The media in Australia, it's just something else. I know the UK has a reputation for being bad, for what they did to Princess Diana. And honestly, it's just at a point now where it's gutter, and I refuse to get in the gutter with people. And also on that note, I know I've said before, and I want to say this because I'm waiting for it to be used against me. I've said that I will talk to anybody, and most of these people have my number. Yes, I will talk to you, but if you come at me and knife me in the back, push me on the ground, kick me in the guts, and then turn around and say, "Can we talk about it?" No. No, there are two options in a fight when you get attacked like that. You either pick up a bar stool and you throw it and you escalate the fight, or you get away from someone who is deliberately causing you harm and has deliberately attacked you when they've caught you off guard. I will not waste my time dealing or getting into the gutter with people who treat me like that. Respect is a two-way street. I will give you the respect if you give me the respect. If you disrespect me, if you trash my name, if you come at me with knives and slash me in the face and then say, "Can we talk about it?" No. Get away from me. I don't have to put up with that. I have enough to deal with. I'm fighting for the people. That is more important than dealing with what you're trying to start with me. So that's where my priorities are. Do not call me. You have done your dash with me. Oh, and tying into that, Terence Weston said, "Don't ever wrestle with the pig, the anti-mob. You both will get dirty, but the pig will enjoy it." Untitled, backing Lady Liberty all the way and after. Thank you, Untitled. That's one of my favorite Blink 182 albums, Untitled. Shooter Down Under, and since they've run that hit piece, will you finally be filing a defamation lawsuit against the wankers at Doc Shooters? I've been asked this a few times, and yes, that's true. That's another reason I shudder when I get requests from the Wank Australian and Channel 7, who own the Wank Australian in that state. Kerry Stokes, of course, is the owner there. He got a free passport to travel in and out of WA during the time that the borders were closed. Rules for thee, not for me. I've been asked about the doxing so many times, and we don't have a Privacy Act in WA, and the federal privacy laws were not breached. I know, I can't believe I'm even saying this. A similar thing happened in California where the AG's department doxed the shooters over there, and that went to court, and I think they got the people who were affected got paid compensation for the distress that was caused and the privacy breach that was there. We don't have those laws here in WA. Terrifying that they got away with it. There's nothing we can challenge that on. And a simple Google search will show that, unfortunately. Okay, just having a look through. If you are tuning in, hello, I am Kate Fantanell, Kate Fantanell, Lady Liberty Australia. This is Shooting the Breeze, my live show. Please put your questions, comments in the chat. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you're on Facebook, please like this stream too, and maybe head over to YouTube because that's been a lot nicer to me than Facebook has. Australia says greetings from far north Queensland. Keep up the good work, Lady Liberty. Thank you, I will. Joe Ramirez, why doesn't the SSAA support you? Yes, so those of you who've followed me for a while would know that I did work for SSAA National in their head office for 5 years. Feels like a lifetime ago now. That was back in 2013 to 2018 before I moved on to work for Senator David Leyonhjelm, the most pro-gun politician we've ever had. I miss him. I wish he was still in the Senate. So I worked for SSAA National for 5 years. I had a great relationship with the team there even after I left. There's been a change of the guard there, change of staff as well. I'm not too sure what it looks like now. I know they have a new CEO at the helm who used to be a Labor minister in South Australia. So I don't know how I feel about that because Labor is a socialist party and they are typically anti-gun. I'm not too sure how that aligns with the SSAA National at this time. Not too sure anymore. But SSAA and WA, yes, they didn't support me. They didn't support my Senate campaign despite me asking. I did offer to work for them when they formed their community alliance and they didn't want me either. So that's the leadership. It's a reflection on the decisions of the people in charge. They have their own agenda, their own mission. Perhaps they didn't want to be associated with someone like me. I mean, they could probably use the picture in the paper as a reason, but why wouldn't you want someone loud and proud and educated and experienced in this space? I don't know. That's for the leadership to decide. And after what's happened with the state election, I'm sure they'll be reflecting, well, I hope they're reflecting on the decisions that were made, because now we are all in this boat where we're all waiting and praying for the legal action route to save us. And that's a lot of pressure on me as an individual. And I know everyone is very anxious about next week and what the advice will be, which I'll be sharing as soon as I can and getting my ducks in a row. So that's okay. They don't want to support me. It has delayed the timeline on getting this action across the line. I've had to crowdfund from the people, which I'm so grateful for the support. Sometimes you just have to do it without an organization backing you and with other organizations attacking you. I took on that risk because the fight means more to me, and it's just something that I have to deal with, is the backlash that I get. So anything I can do to help my people, I will. So Edgar D. Barros, can anybody confirm on a cooling off period after the 31st? So Joe Ramirez has replied 90 days. So I believe the hard deadline on the 31st of March is in relation to the prohibited firearms that were introduced in the regulations back on December 23, which is the push button and the lever actions above 5 mag capacity. So that's one of the things, that's the first item on the agenda when I speak to my lawyers next week, is what, if anything, can we do to stop that or put a stopgap in place through the courts. The 90-day deadline, I believe, is for the transitional period. It's called for all the other new laws that they've brought in. Security, I believe, was a 31st of March deadline too, but I've been told that the police are accepting receipt proof of purchase of increased security arrangements, including the 10 mil safe CCTV, as proof of compliance. I don't know if that's true. We just can't believe it anymore. And I said to the person who sent that through to me, have you got that in writing? If you don't have that in writing, I'm sorry, I can't take people at their word anymore, which breaks my heart to say because I'm from the country and that's how we communicate. We take people at their word. If you're a liar, you get found out pretty quickly and your reputation is tarnished. But we just don't know. This is a new world that we're dealing with. The government is not governing in according to conventions and manners of the past. It is very much changed in WA, and that's something that I really noticed talking to my friends in politics there and the legal community too. They were just so surprised at how WA has changed in the way that it's governed because they've had a one party state ruling the roost for 4 years and they've just been given the power to go ahead with the Greens holding the balance of power. My goodness, we will see. But and I encourage anybody who's in a situation where they're not sure when the date is, send an email to the firearms branch, get them to reply in writing. You need it in writing now. This is the world that we are living in. We cannot take phone calls, even if you write it down, because that's what I do. I'm a journalist. I take notes and date everything as proof, and I'm required to do that as part of my job to hold this information for 7 years from my notes for any stories I put out. So that's what I do. But now we are in a world where we need everything in writing to cover ourselves. We need to protect ourselves. I'm having another drink again to celebrate Paul Papalia getting demoted. So okay, more questions and comments. Please keep them coming through. I'm here to answer questions to you. I apologise if I go off on little tangents or rants when I answer your questions. I've just got so much in my little lady brain, as Mr. Winter calls it. He says, I don't know how you know so much with your little head. But I've always been very good at retaining information, and my parents taught me from an early age to read, know your history, know your stuff. And my father said that to me when I got into this whole gun advocacy business, to make sure you know your stuff, Kate. So that's what I do. I did see a question, scrolling, shoot it down under to our mates in the good old USA. I and many others have donated to a few 2A lawsuits as well. Look, spreading the love. It's an international fight. I also follow what's going on in Europe too. We have to help each other. We are a big community, and it just goes to show the power of the people. We have more power than we are told to think. Rod Fitzpatrick, there should be no question about calibers people want to own. If someone wants to hunt with a 30 cal or 30 mil, then that's their choice, mate. I agree, especially when it's your own property. You can do whatever you want on that property as long as you're not harming anyone else and you're taking into account your neighbours. You can have anything you like and do what you like. Rob Madafari, tell them, cops, nothing. Keep them guessing. Never do their job for them. That's good advice. So Glenn Leslie, hi Glenn, is a good mate of mine. A YouTube channel had announced the Queensland Police Commissioner had announced they had reversed the large caliber ban. Really should let FVR 375 about us over here in WA. Yes. Okay, I'll have to check them out. I love seeing content that other people in the fight do. I did come across, I think, what was it called? Studio 701. There's some a husband and wife up north in WA that put out this hilarious video about how the WA gun laws were made, and they even put out a song about WA gun laws. I'll see if Mr. Liberty can share their channel in the chat because it's worth checking out, and I will have them on my show. I think I'm going on their show. We're spreading the love. It's great to see other people take up the fight in different entertaining ways. Christopher Leaker, I will be donating what I can. We're about to have a baby just after the new laws are in, so I pray this is successful. Congratulations in advance for the little baby. Um, maybe spend your money buying your baby something firearms related. Baby's first gun if it was America. But congratulations and thank you for your support, Christopher. I'm sorry this is adding to your stress. So Wayne Webb, WA gun confiscation is a prime example of where the majority communist bullies under a democracy can gang up on a legitimate minority. American brothers, don't ever let your government take your constitutional republic away so you can keep your individual rights. Thank you for donating to Kate's and Australia's great fight for this once great country against these tool confiscating tyrants. Men, Wayne, in relation to individual rights, and you've referred to the constitutional republic, your rights are not prescribed to you by the state. They are given to you at birth from God above or inalienable rights, whoever you believe your rights come from. There are lots of great statesmen and people who have spoken about this in the past, that we humans are born with rights. We do not have to participate in a system where we are fooled into believing that the state is the one who assigns us rights, and we have to adhere to these laws that infringe on our God-given rights. I'm a big believer in that, and I hope I had a email conversation today with a gentleman who raised this point with me about he can't wait until Australia becomes a republic and we have a constitution that enshrines our God-given rights in law that shall not be infringed. This is something that I wake up every day and know in my heart that I'm born with these rights, and I will not stand idly by and let, as you've stated here, Wayne, communist bullies under a democracy gang up on a legitimate minority, and that is exactly what's happened in WA and across Australia too. I will not stand for that. I will always fight on the side of the people against these bullies. And you're right, this Australia was a once great country. I'm so proud to be Australian. I love my country. I've spoken before about my Italian relatives coming here and calling it home, and how it doesn't seem to be what the country they came here for so many years ago. And this is something that keeps me going every day, fighting for the future and for the next generation, especially for the next generation of hunters and shooters. And Pete Foxall, imagine a world where the press actually stood up to power and didn't just brown nose them. Imagine. But money is a funny thing. Once money is involved, people can change their opinions very quickly. This is why I am proud to be an independent person. I don't accept money from anyone, and I will never be used as a puppet to speak the vitriol of some of these other organizations who have a different agenda and a different motivation to me and why I'm doing this fight. So I will always speak the truth, and I'll never be silenced or bought. So Richard Majeski, hi Kate. Are these so-called laws for every shooter, including Indigenous people? If not, is that racial discrimination? Well, interestingly, the police are specifically exempt from the laws. The police are exempt from the laws. And from my memory, I believe that there are caveats for Indigenous Australians on the grounds of culture. And this is why I didn't vote yes to the voice, because I don't believe in a two-tiered society based on ethnic background. You can't control your ethnicity. That is something you were born with. That should not give you rights above your other individuals. We should all be equality before the law. This is something, if you follow what's happening in South Africa and what's happening there, especially with the Caucasian people, this is race should never be a part of any laws giving people less or more rights. We know in the past that race has been used to oppress, especially our Indigenous Australian brothers and sisters. They did not have the right to own firearms early after colonisation. So that's something that is a stain on our history as well. This whole divide between race and gender and political beliefs, even it's used to divide us. We are all individuals. We all have our unique identity. We are not defined on one thing, whether it's race or gender or sexuality, anything like that. That's why I'm very much aligned with the libertarian philosophy on believing in individuals and not collectivizing people and putting them into groups to be oppressed or raised above others. That's a great question. And the fact that the police are a specific group that have been exempt from the new laws is terrifying. In what world do we give the police, who are meant to be there as a public servant to us, to help keep the peace and are called upon to help when we need them? Why should they be elevated above we the people when it comes to firearm laws specifically? This is why I've referred to WA as becoming a police state, because that's what it's become there. And that's something I'm trying to fight against. And I hope to God Reece Whitby, I saw before the new police minister used to be a journo, somebody said in the comments. Hopefully that means he has critical thought and he knows what questions to ask and he will listen to the answer. But remember, he's part of the faction of the Labor Party aligned with Roger Cook, who replaced Mr. Premier McGowan. So they're aligned with this way of thinking. So I don't think we can have much hope in a new police minister. But that's a great question. So John Zafara said, "Can't thank you enough. Honestly, you're doing a fantastic job representing us all. Whatever I say will be an understatement. Well done. You should be very proud of yourself. I won't be proud of myself until I get some wins on the board in the legal action challenge. I think I truly am humbled to be in a position where I can get the legal advice, the letter of opinion from the King's Council, and that I've got the best of the best on my team doing this. I can't thank my legal team enough. I know we can get in some heated discussions, but honestly, they're all aligned with my way of thinking, and that's something I will work with anyone who wants to advance liberty, truly advance liberty, and put ego, personality, agenda, wanting to get the clout. I don't want to be held up as anything. I just want justice to prevail for my community and my people. So thank you for your thanks. That means a lot to me hearing it. Giuseppe Montalini. The new laws have effectively removed the ability for practical shotgun competitors to possess a Category C firearm. Given the apparent arbitrary nature of these changes, can we get compensation? This is the big thing, and this was one of the two first things that came out of my mouth when I had my first meeting with my lawyers back on the 10th of March was, can the state force us to surrender our private property that has monetary value, sometimes in the thousands, tens of thousands, more than that in some cases, without compensation. And there are other stories coming out now, especially in relation to lever actions, where the market has just completely tanked. People are trying to sell these firearms interstate because they cannot fathom the thought of handing them into the state, who will, like we saw on September 11, likely blow them up again. Like, that is not a violation of the NAP, the non-aggression principle. That is violence. That was a violent act doing that. I have to stress that I was horrified when I saw that image of all the firearms people voluntarily participated in that buyback. You can't buy back something you never owned in the first place. Please, can the state write that down? I'm sick of saying it, but it's the truth. people are now in a position in Australia in 2025, a worse position than when we were put in 1996, when the buyback had to, because there is a clause in the Australian Constitution that says the Commonwealth government has to pay for fair value of the property they are confiscating or have made illegal. My lawyers are looking at if that applies in this case too. I do not want anyone to have to surrender or try to sell a firearm at a tanked price because of these new laws. I don't believe that the state should have the power to ban private property in the first place. But if they do have that power, which I do not like that happening in a free country like Australia, if they do, like it's in the Constitution, they do have the power to do that, that they have to pay fair compensation. This is something that I am looking at for you. And I know I don't think that that's enough, that you're compensated for what you've lost. I want you to keep it from my cold, dead hands, as that was put in the Ben Harvey piece about me. I don't want you to have to hand in anything, but if you have to, because this is the democracy that we live under, I want you to receive compensation for it. And I do not think it is a appropriate use of taxpayers' money to be buying private property off of peaceful people because you've brought in laws that you believe should be the law of the land without listening to any of us during that disingenuous consultation period. I do not think this is a fair system that we are living under. So at the very least, you compensate us for that. And that is something I've been very clear with my legal team about. I do not want people in a worse off situation. And I've heard multiple stories of people saying, if I had known that they were closing that buyback program, that they weren't going to reopen it, and then they introduced the prohibited firearm bans in December after they closed the buyback, and now they're saying, too bad, you're not getting any compensation, sell it on a tanked market or we'll blow it up for you. That is not how a government should treat the people. No. And this is why I'm so glad I'm in this position where I've got lawyers on speed dial, because this is the kind of conversations I'm having. No wonder my lawyer gets a bit grumpy with me. But this is what I believe, and this is the messages I'm getting from you, and I'm relaying how you're feeling to them. So Rob Madafari again said if Papalia got demoted, then he has done something wrong in respect to legislation, otherwise nothing would have changed. Look into it, there must be something there. Same with that peanut, Murray. What is a peanut? Yes, I'll see what I can find. I'll ask around the drinking circles in Perth and see a bit of political gossip. But like I said, he is gone. We have a new minister now. I feel it's just shuffling the decks. We're still going to have the same puppets that preach to us and don't listen to us. So I'm not going to spend too much time thinking about it. I'm just glad that he's gone. He was terrible to deal with. Blocked me on social media. I'll never let that go. He also caused harm to one of my dear friends, Alan, who I did get to catch up with in Perth. We went and sang karaoke. I will bring you his devastating story about his experience with the police minister in regards to his beautiful daughter. So he has caused so much harm to so many people. He should not even be. He's not fit to serve. I've said it before. For someone who served in the Royal Australian Navy, he does not seem to be a person who serves the people. He serves his factions and himself before he serves us. So good riddance. He hasn't gone far away enough from politics, if you ask me. Peg's Place said finally people are saying no to Daniel Andrews in Victoria lately. He's been refused to pubs and tradies working for him. I did see that. I was in Victoria on the battleground in the lead up to their last state election in November 2022. I helped David Limerick for the Libertarian Party get re-elected. I'm so devastated that Tim Quilty didn't get in. He was the victim of the preference system over there. Terrible for him. He was a great loss. He was my favourite over in Victoria. He's a bloody legend, Tim Quilty. I see he's put his hat in the ring for a lower house seat in this federal election. I wish he was their lead Senate candidate because then I could support what's happening in Victoria, but I can't after what's happened there. And yes, people are saying no to Daniel Andrews. He caused a lot of harm to people there. Mr. Liberty is from Victoria. He's told me some terrible stories from his time living in Melbourne, including with his brother there. I'm going to interview him about that one day, get him on camera and have him share his stories because we can't let people forget what happened during those times. A lot of people are still hurting, and I've been hurt too. I'll share that story one day as well, not just because of the closed border and not being able to travel in my own country to see my family. I couldn't see my dad. That was just devastating not to be able to see him for so long. And my mum, of course, my mum's more of a private person. She doesn't like me mentioning her, but she exists. I get my sense of humor from her. But yeah, it was very hard times, and this is why I don't think getting refused entry to pubs and having tradies not work for you, I don't think that's enough punishment. I have other ideas on how we should punish these people, but I'm not going to share them, otherwise I'll get banned or arrested. Pete Foxall says the fact that because I want one isn't the only reason you need to supply them is ridiculous. In my opinion, you don't need to supply a reason when buying a car or motorcycle, yet I agree, Pete. And as I said, anything the state or military can own, we peaceful people should be able to own too. John Zafaris, Kate, you should think about running for Prime Minister. Our gorgeous country needs loads more people like yourself. You'll definitely have my vote. Well, John, I'm sorry to disappoint you. I don't want to be Prime Minister, but maybe one day I will be President. Maybe of Australia first. These are the kind of big dreams I have. Mr. and Mrs. Engineer. Hi, Kate. With opening any bad feeling, how should culture come into it when Indigenous people never had firearms in their culture? And this is the other thing that the logic doesn't make sense, but I know why you've said your caveat at the start, because we're in such sensitive times and you don't want to be labelled a racist or alt-right as I've been labelled. And I've actually been having a great conversation in emails with a professional roof shooter who's proudly said he's Indigenous, and he seems like a bloody legend. I hope you're watching tonight, Christian. And yeah, this is the thing. The Indigenous have their own culture of hunting, and that's respected in the law. I'm Italian Irish. I've got my own traditions of hunting that we've brought over from our countries that were respected, because this is the thing, and I said it before. Can you imagine the government telling any other minority group, of which we are? Shooters and hunters are a minority in this country, and that's by design. After 1996, people were shamed if they admitted to still owning a gun. That's the culture that the government, Fabian socialism, when it was from a liberal government of all people, supported by the Labor Party. Please always remember that. It's so easy to call it Howard's laws, but it was not just Howard, it was Labor at the time too, who signed it willingly and was egging everything on. They probably wanted to go further. So this is the thing, we are taught to be respectful of people's preferences and their culture, but we, the hunter-gatherers, we're not being respected at all. And we're the ones living off the land in a cost of living crisis and feeding our families. And this is our culture. And the government is just completely thumbed a nose at us and are now putting us in a position where we can't continue our traditions and cultures. We can't pass it on to our kids because we won't have the tools to show them, and we don't want to introduce bad habits and get them shooting the wrong calibers for the wrong animal. We do not. This is not in our culture. So I agree. It's a crazy world that we're living in, where we're forced to respect the choices of other people and the cultures of other minority societies, but ours is just completely trashed, tarnished, trodden over by the state. And this is why I'm so passionate about standing up for you, the people who don't have a voice, and we've been let down by our organizations who just haven't been able to keep up with the times and keep up with the fact that we are in a world where information is available to us. Look at what's happening. We're sitting all over the world listening and talking to each other, and the organizations haven't kept up with the fact that this is such a useful tool that we could be using to educate others about our culture. And that's what I'm trying to do with my Lady Liberty profile. So great comment, and I understand where you're coming from. Templeton Peck. The more people I speak to, a lot of people are getting hit hard. People you would never think of being also targeted. Mr. Bullet 1952, it won't matter who the new WA Minister of Police is, they will toe the party line. That's the other issue I have with the political system in this country, is when the politicians and the people we elect, they are meant to be there to represent us as the constituents, as the people. They don't do that anymore. They represent their own interests, the interests of their donors, the interests of their factions, the interests of the party surviving and growing. And we are left by the wayside and have to live under their laws that they decide in complete silo to what we want. This is a big problem I have with politics in Australia. There is no accountability to us. They can do what they like, and we get elections every 4 years as a democracy. Democracy is the majority, what the majority want, not what the individual wants, or a reflection of minority groups who just don't have the numbers to influence elections to the extent that we have a big change like we all wanted at the WA election. We really need to stop and think about, is this how we want our country to be governed? Because I do not know one person who is happy with the state of Australia and the road that we're going down. And it's easy to get online and complain and don't go out into the community and try to affect real change. And that's something that I am so proud that I am doing. If I can say anything about my work, I am proud that I'm working for my community and not just sitting here talking to you and then logging off and going to the pub, logging off, going through your emails, calling my lawyers, calling people that I get advice from outside of all of this. People like Senator David Linehouse, my goodness, to have him as a mentor of mine. I've really worked hard to surround myself with inspirational, intelligent people that shape what I know and what I can do and help me with my work. And that's what I think politicians should do, not operate it the way they are, and actually listen to what the people and the advice of intelligent people without hidden motivations or hidden agendas want. I'm just going to have a drink. I've got my Don't Tread on Me comp. Got this from Texas, actually. So cheers again to Police Minister Paul Papali. You're going, thank God I don't have to do any more memes with his face on it. I got sick of opening up my computer and having to look at his face to make my funny memes. But the things you do for the fight. So Aces and Eights has said, donate to the gun shop before handing them over. Give them a chance to be bought by someone else, especially when they are making importation difficult. This is the other sad stories that I've been hearing from all the emails I've received, is that the WA firearms industry has effectively been shut down. NIWA have said that they're not sending any firearms into WA. TSA Outdoors have also said the same. I've had emails from gun shops too saying that they're not in a position to take guns to resell because the market has completely tanked. And this is an example of the state interfering in the market. This is not the role of the state. You are not there to interfere in the free market in a peaceful community and shut down an entire industry to the point that big dealers from Uber Eats do not want anything to do with us. This is the position that you put us in, and this is by design. This is what they wanted. Remember at the start of all of this, they specifically said, the state government said, our goal is to reduce the number of legally held firearms in our community. Legally held firearms by peaceful people. The fact they even said that out loud, the mind just boggles. And yes, and they talk about public safety and we have to get the balance right. Their whole goal that they publicly stated was about targeting us. That was a declaration of war on us. And that is why I said to the shooting organizations, don't do it. Do not sit down with this government that are operating like terrorists against us and think that you're going to get any result that will please us. So you might get results that please you and keep your organizations going, which is why we're seeing so many people being siphoned into clubs and forced to join clubs to keep their firearms when they don't want to join a club. They just want to be able to shoot on their own property, but they can't because the state has arbitrarily said that the size of your property isn't big enough to own these firearms anymore. So if you want to keep them, join a club and keep the shooting organisation surviving. Yes, that's great that you got that as a win, but what did we get as we the people? You have negotiated our rights away with a government that openly declared war against us. And now we're all sitting here going, well, the election didn't go as planned, so now what? Well, thank God I made that decision back in January to take on this legal action battle, because I could have easily walked away. I could have easily said, not my fight. I'm not a firearm owner there anymore. Why do I care? I've got a new husband. I've got a life to live. I've got things I want to achieve. Wipe my hands and run away. Run away, as I've been accused of doing about other things. No, I stood up and I said, I will fight against this injustice for my community because WA is my home. It is the state that I will always call home here in Australia. I wish I could build a life there, but I'm unemployable in WA. I'm so glad that Mr. Liberty has jobs that he can do over East. But this is a situation that we've been put in, and the gun shops are just sitting there going, we wish we could do more, we wish we could help, but we're trying to run a business that is also affected by the new laws. They have new requirements on them. This is another part of the challenge that we have. They have to provide details about their business projections on how many firearms they will sell. How are they meant to provide that in order to get approval to keep running their business when you've just crashed the market? I honestly believe that this is all by design to shut down our entire community in WA, and that WA will be the state where the last Australian shooter that Aussie Reviews wrote about will come true. And I do not want that to happen. And I'll be doing everything in my power, especially next week. It's going to be another big week. I'll be doing everything in my power to make sure that does not become a reality, because you don't deserve that. You are my people, and I will stand with you, even if it's to my own detriment and to my own personal detriment and to my own health. Oh, Connor Gifford, why did you bring that up? What a bad footy result on Thursday night. Carlton 60 to Hawthorn 80. I'm not a dictator, or I don't want to censor your free speech, but can we please have no more Carlton footy chat in the comments, unless we win, speaking like a true Carlton supporter. Oh, Templeton Peck, buyback equals paying the costs of your own enslavement. Amen. Shooter Down Under, I hope that you're successful with your challenges, especially the gun limits. 7 News has been putting the gun limits to the police minister in my state of New South. Yes, and this is something that I have put on the agenda of my KC to look at, is the fact that the state now believes it has the power to limit the number of private property we can own. Firstly, in relation to firearms, what will it be next? And this is a conversation I had with my brother-in-law, who has his own views on the world, and I love having chats with him. He's a bloody legend. He's Serbian, so we get very passionate. We've got into some big fights, but I love him dearly. He's my brother-in-law. He's helped me survive in WA, and he said, now that you've said it like that, he's a big car enthusiast, and he said, I don't want to have limits on how many cars I can own based on their engine capacity. That this is a slippery slope that we're going down, and this is why, if you're tuning in and you don't care about firearms, you just want to listen to somebody rant at a camera for 2 hours, this is something that you should really turn to your mind to. And that's why when Mark and Sam put out their video explaining the importance of this fight and the precedent it could set, if the state gets away with limiting us on the number of private property we can own in this space, what will they do next? And we can't trust the Labor and Greens government in this regard. We know that their agenda is you will own nothing and you will be happy. That is what the commies want. They believe in all of society owning everything and distributing it to everybody. They don't believe in individuals having their own talent and succeeding as individuals. They want us to all be seen as equals. This is the big problem I have with the commies. They don't believe in individual rights, and this is why I'm so against them. And this is the primary reason out of all of this, is why I agree to go down this road of legal action, because I want to get a judge to rule on this. And whichever way it goes, I'm hopeful that, like you've said, Shooter Down Under, that we're successful, particularly in relation to the limits on private property. But I am preparing myself mentally for if the judge rules that actually, yes, the state does have the power to limit us on private property. Is this the Australia that we want to live in? I don't want to, and I don't, from my conversations with other people, I don't think that's what we want either. So this is a very important battle, and this is why I'm very stressed that we will have some answers next week. So Mark Weston, what's the worst case scenario for us if your lawyer comes back saying there's not much or nothing we can do? The government has been slowly removing our property rights for years now, and I think I just touched on that then. What can we do? And that's why I need to take the time to read the advice, and my lawyers need the time to read the advice so we know what strategies we can develop to successfully fight that. Because I've been told already that there are multiple ways we can challenge this. I mean, the emails and the different things affecting different people, it's not just one part of the law that we have an issue with, it's multiple. Like I said, something on every page of the Act and the regulations was flagged as potentially being able to challenge. This is the level of work that me and my team are dealing with at the moment. And so when I get the advice, and whatever it will be, I will be able to make that executive decision based on the feedback from you, the people, and talking to my trusted confidants on what we can do to fight. It might just be 1, it might be 10, it might be 20, it might be a class action. We will know next week. But everybody, and my lawyer said this to me, he's like, make sure you don't overpromise. And the only thing I can promise is that I will be doing everything I can to put us in a position where we can have wins. I will not be going down any road down the garden path, led down the garden path on things that will waste everybody's time, which is why I have not wasted much time or energy on the criticism that I have got from my own people who want to derail this fight. I'm focused purely on solutions and what is best and what I can do to help the people. So I will have answers very soon, but that's a great point. We have to prepare, expect the worst and pray for the best. Or I always stuff up the sayings, but you know what I'm saying. And I'll be able to have the news next week, whatever way it goes. Justice system is a whole different beast, whole different beast. Mr. Bullitt, 1952, said WA is the test case. It will happen Australian-wide, and this is something that I said from the start. Please do not get complacent if you're looking at WA from over east and pointing and laughing and saying things like you get what you vote for, or just having no sympathy or empathy. Do not get complacent. We saw what came out in Queensland this week about the 300 Win Mag rifles. We've seen what's happening in the NT down in Tassie too. South Australia has their own fight on their hands with the police there looking at changing the requirements for pistol clubs. That's something my dad is dealing with and very concerned about at the moment. They're requesting 10-metre backstops, 10 metres, like bigger than a house. To be compliant pistol range in South Australia. There are fights going on in this space all around the country. I know there's stuff happening in New South and Victoria too. I could do an episode on each state and territory every night of the week, 7 episodes for all our different states and territories if I had the time, but my focus is on WA and stopping it at its source. And this is why I wish in my heart, I wish that the shooting organisations, especially those based over east who say they have sympathy for WA and doing what they can there, I wish that they would help me. But this is a position that I'm in, and I will continue to fight regardless of the support that I do and don't get. And it's only because of the people that I can help you. And Christian Kotze, yes, it's by design. It's an act of war. It's also just actively offensive. And that's how I feel. I know people might get a bit taken aback by me saying that, but it's an act of aggression. There's something in the libertarian philosophy called the non-aggression principle, which means if you're a peaceful person and someone does an act of violence against you, you have the right to respond. That's something that I believe in, and I believe that the state government of WA has violated the NAP. My friends in America will know what I'm talking about. And unfortunately, we don't have the ability in Australia to respond appropriately. So that is why we have to go down the legal action route. If I said what I think we should do if we did not live in this system, I would, if anyone ever has a beer with me, you can ask me what I would do, and I think a few of you will know. Oh, Nolan knew what a disaster this beautiful country would be and if this government continues, and that's why I know a lot of people are focused on the federal election, which is coming up probably in May from all predictions. I will have more to say about the federal election when it gets announced. But until then, okay, I think I'm going to wrap up because I've been going for nearly 2 hours. Mr. Liberty's given me the thumbs up of approval. He's not yelling at me tonight to keep going. So thank you, Mr. Liberty. Thanks for being my sound guy. I really appreciate you. So thank you to everyone for tuning in for my regular Sunday night live stream. I'm Kate Fantanell, or Lady Liberty Australia. We have a big week next week in WA. I'm due to get the legal opinion, the official advice from the KC tomorrow. We'll take time to go over that. I believe it is quite a substantive document. It has to be because the information I gave him to look at was quite a long list, and it's been expanded because of the feedback from you, the people who have contacted me, sharing the position that you're in and raising some other issues that I've passed on to him to look at. So the timeline, again, I will reiterate. Yes, tomorrow I'm due to get the KC's advice, and then I will take time with my lawyers to look over it and develop a strategy. And then I'm having that meeting with him and my team on the Wednesday. I will be either doing a live stream or putting out a video update Wednesday. I'll be spending Monday, Tuesday. If you have contacted me and if you've left your number, I might be calling you. I might be calling you to line up what we need to go forward with the next steps in this battle. Again, I will reiterate, I have signed a contract to fund that. So if I call you, please do not be concerned about court costs. That's what the war chest is for. It is here to fund the next part of the legal action battle, which could not even get to this stage if I hadn't gone out and crowdfunded for this letter of opinion. So on that note, please, I know everyone's very stressed. I know my heart goes out to everyone that I've heard from who are in this position. And please rest assured I'm doing everything I can. And my team is too. We are ready to go. We are getting ready to go. And I'll be sharing with you what we are doing next week. Please keep an eye, if you haven't already, like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Shooting the Breeze with Lady Liberty is where you can find it. That's where I am predominantly putting out this information and filtering it down to my other channels. So, on that note, I know there are a lot of people who are very anxious and stressed in WA. I am too. I'm sorry that we are in this position. I think I've said that in nearly every email, apologising for what the state government has done and the positions we've been put in. It's heartbreaking. We should not even be in this position in 2025. Who would have thought up to 1996? Who would have even thought? And that the stories of the people who were affected in 1996 who are now triggered because they're getting treated worse than they were in 1996. This is how much we have lost the fight. And this is why I'm doing this, to fight for justice for you. So thank you for tuning in. Big week ahead. Hopefully I don't have to deal with any more bloody media hit pieces. It's just a distraction. I can't waste my time and energy on it. I just wish that they would get the facts right. That's all I hope. I'm a journalist. If you can't get that right, well, this is a very sad state of the world. So please keep emailing me, ladyliberty.walegal@gmail.com. I'm still going through your emails. Please be prepared for me to contact you back. And on that note, thank you for watching, and I will see you and speak to you as soon as I can. Please send me your strength and energy and love, and pray for me if you believe in that. It's a lot of pressure that I'm under, but I'm grateful that I'm in this position to fight for you, and feel so empowered because of the support I've got. So thank you and good night.